Each and every day, enjoy the Simple Six menu at Subway, an entire made-for-you meal featuring one of 6-inch sandwiches like the Italian BMT or Black Forest ham, with any bag of chips and a 21-ounce drink, all for only $6. Subway. Eat fresh.
The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects. The BS Report. The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report. Taping this on a Tuesday afternoon, West Coast time. I am slowly ripping through the greatest 50 players of all time. You were not on that list, Dominique Wilkins. It's one of the all-time injustices in dumb list history, because the list ultimately dumb. But how were you not on that list?
It's an amazing thing, and even to this day, I wonder how that happened. I mean, not just myself. You look at Bob McAdoo, who's been a two-time MVP.
Right.
How he's not on that list. And at the time, when I retired, I was 7th all-time leading scorer in history.
Right.
And, I really appreciate something that Danny Ainge said. He said, Dominique, he's not one of the 50 greatest. In my opinion, he's one of the top 25. And so that was the biggest compliment I think you could have gotten. I think, too, Bird and Magic coming to my fence on this says, how is this guy not a 50 greatest? So to me, that's more validation than I need when you have guys like that come to your defense.
Well, here are your credentials in my mind, other than the 7th leading scorer ever. You had the greatest in-game dunk I've ever seen in person in the 88 Celtics-Hawks series, the dunk when I think you shot it from the foul line.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then you decided to follow it up, but you jumped from the other side of the circle, and I just never seen a human being do that before, and I can kind of still see it. It was incredible.
A lot of things that we did, and I particularly myself, is a lot of stuff was spontaneous.
Right.
And that particular type of shot is something that I did time and time again.
The follow-up jam.
Yeah, because, if I felt like the shot was a little off, I tried to beat the guy who was guarding me to the basket.
Right.
Because, he's facing me, so he doesn't have time to turn and beat me to the basket because my momentum has already taken me towards the basket. So that was a perfect opportunity for me to get tip dunks, which is, people ask me all the time, what's your favorite dunks? And that's some of my favorite because they're not expected. And defenses don't expect that.
Well, you were also, all right, I don't know where you rank on this list, but you're in the conversation, and I don't know whether it's 4, 5, 6, whatever. In-game dunking. Now, people think there's dunk contest dunking. There's breakaway dunking like we saw with Paul George. He did the 360 earlier this week. And then there's dunking on people's heads, dunking in traffic, dunking when people they aren't expecting a dunk. And in my opinion, you were the first. I guess Dr. J's in there too, but you had an ability of nobody even saw the dunk. Like you're on the baseline, you have a sideways angle, but then you're flying. All of a sudden you're dunking.
But
you were the first one, right?
But Dr. J was the grandfather of us all, so I always give him his respect because he did what a lot of people wish they could do today. Some of the stuff he did in games is incredible. But in-game dunking, particularly in traffic, those are the special ones because, you catch people off guard. And this is funny. Bob Lanier and I, who are a very close friend of mine, and he's right after I retired, he said, I just started talking to you again. I'm like, why? He said, the dunk you had on me on the baseline when I was with Milwaukee.
Yeah.
And I had to go home and talk to my kids. And my daughter said, that dunk on TV, you got dunked on by Dominique Wilkins like that. He said, I didn't like you after that. So I didn't speak to you for 9 years. And he didn't. I'm like, so that's the reason why you didn't speak to me? But in-game dunking in traffic, man, those are some of the best, greatest dunks that you'll ever see. And a lot of the dunks that I did in dunk contests are dunks I did in games. But, and I tell people all the time, when you think of me or you look at highlights of me, what do you see? You see dunks. And I tell people all the time that it's hard to get over 26,000 points on dunks alone. I was a creative scorer. In that era, you had to have an arsenal of things that you used to get to the basket and score.
Is it fair to say you went out of your way to dunk on people?
At times. Yeah. At times. And
it seemed like the guy was here, you could have dunked this way, but you kind of went over to his side to kind of get involved.
You know what it was? It's nothing I really thought about. It's just everything happened so quick and it was spontaneous. But the reason why I dunk so hard is to keep big guys from trying to challenge my shot. To give them a second thought. Say, if you're going to challenge my shot, I'm going to put you on a poster. And that was my attitude. But more importantly, it just gave me a free reign to the basket because they weren't going to challenge it most times.
Right. Greatest dunk ever? One you'll take when you're like 85 years old, lying in bed.
The greatest dunk ever.
Oh, that one dunk. the best one.
Man, that's a tough one. I mean, I had quite a few dunks in game on people.
It has to be in game, right?
Yeah, it has to be in game. Dunk contest is something,
little traffic.
For the weekend. And you got to be in traffic. I think one of the greatest ones was probably the one, I would say, is Bob Lanier on the baseline, or the one against Robert Parrish off of a break, and where we both went up at the same time and we both elevated. And I kept going up, and that's one of the greatest dunks I think I've had. Other than the one on the baseline with Bob Lanier. But again, it's very hard because it's been so many.
You had one on Bird when he jumped up to try to challenge it. It was in Atlanta.
I forgot about that one.
And then at the last minute, he realized he shouldn't be challenging it, but his body was in the air, and you were like, "You really? And it was like you almost murdered him."
I was very angry that game, and I remember after that dunk, because Bird had been talking all game. I think I don't know if it was my first or second year. And when I dunked it on him, and I'm pointing, I'm talking, he said, "I like you, rookie. You got a lot of heart." He still had 30-something that game. Right. So it was a great game. But those are the moments that in the 80s that's so precious.
Right.
You can't get those.
Well, you guys had some good rivalries, and people they talk from the 80s. They talk about the Celtics, Lakers, Pistons. You were you had bad fortune of being in the wrong conference.
Yeah.
You had to do
tough conference.
The heyday of the Bird era. Then that goes right into Bad Boy Pistons.
Well, you got to understand, and it wasn't just the Celtics in that area. Like you mentioned, you talking about the Sixers,
yep.
Dr. J and that crew. You talking about New York.
That was your rookie year, right?
Exactly.
83? Yeah. And then
New York was a great team.
Yep.
Chicago was a great team. Milwaukee, Cleveland. It was so.
Oh yeah, you're right. Because if you go to the 90s, then you bring in Jordan into it, and you bring in the Mark Price Doherty Cavs.
And Detroit Pistons had a great team. So the East was no joke. Even the teams that you would call mediocre teams were good teams. New Jersey was a good team.
Yeah, you're right. I'm a huge Celtic fan. I was a season ticket holder, so I saw you play more than a few times in Boston. But you guys had a good rivalry with the Celtics because it was definitely like the Celtics had that weak spot in the 80s of the super athletic teams were a problem. You guys were super athletic. Portland was the other team that if they could make it a track meet and start going up and down, the Celtics had trouble with that. And you guys knew it. You guys talked a little trash, too. Those games were always nice.
Those games was great. And I think, the Celtics was one of those teams, if you get them in a running game, because they had some guys who was getting older. If you got them in a running game, you could beat them.
Right. Wear them down.
But what they were great at is slowing the game down and making you play at their pace. And having one of the greatest players to ever lace a pair of shoes up in Larry Bird.
Yeah.
In a half-court situation, he was evil. I mean, you couldn't beat him in a half-court. And then you add Robert Parrish, Kevin McHale, Danny Ainge, Dennis Johnson. Then you come off the bench with Walton, Scott Wedman, Reggie Lewis. They had so many guys. They were deep. They were a deep team, but they played that bump and grind type of basketball.
Right.
There was nothing up-tempo about them, but they would make you play at their pace.
A couple Boston games we got to talk about. Mm-hmm. The 60-point game Bird had.
You had to bring up that one, huh?
Well, your teammates were cheering on the bench for him. Did you what happened? Did you punch him after the game?
Well, I tell you what,
they
got fined.
They got fined? I never knew that.
Very hefty fines after that. Because,
did you know they were doing that when it was happening?
Oh, when I saw it, I said, hey, these guys don't get fined. I mean, you don't do that for the opposing team. But Bird was so hot.
He was out of his mind.
He was out of his mind. He shot a couple of threes with his left and fell into our bench, and they high-fived and they cheered on our bench.
Yeah.
And I made sure that them guys got fined because you don't do that.
Jalen and I were watching that clip, and he was pointing out how Randy Whitman was just sitting there like this, and he's like, see Randy Whitman? He knows he's going to coach someday. That's why he's sitting like that. Those other guys didn't think they were going to coach.
Oh, but, Randy was upset about that.
Yeah.
I mean, he was very upset about that, and myself, as well. But, and I make fun about this all the time. I said, they even talk about the 39 or 40 I had. They say, hey, Bird had 60.
Yeah, that's true.
But he had got into a groove early in the game. When you get a guy in that zone, and when you're great players in the zone, there's no defense that you can design to stop him.
And plus, you're playing in New Orleans. The fans are Celtic fans.
It wasn't really a home game.
Nah, it wasn't a home game.
I mean, when you're not playing in your own building, to me, it's not a home game. It's just not. And again, we were that team that was kind of trying to find our way at that time. So
what do you remember about
a bad moment?
2 games in 86, because I think the 86 Celtics were the best team ever. I just think
they were good.
67 and 15, 15-2 in the playoffs, and the 15 games they lost, like 8 of them were the crappy teams that they just, they were coasting. They had a game in Atlanta that was probably my favorite regular season game of that. You guys must have been up 25 at halftime. There was a lot of talking. There was some celebrating. And then the second half became a playoff game. Like, do you remember that one or no?
That was a war.
It was a war.
It was a war. And we had a couple guys who liked to – they got a little animated. And it wasn't to try to show anybody up. It was just the way they played. They played with a lot of emotion.
Yeah.
The Cliff Livingston's, the Antoine, the Kevin Willis. They played with a lot of emotion. Yeah, they talked a lot. And oftentimes we had to say, okay, guys, let's just play the game. Let's not talk so much, because one thing you don't want to do is wake up a sleeping giant.
Right. So then in the playoffs – they had, I think it was like a 25-0 run or something like that in the Garden in Game 5, which was probably the best they ever played that season. I think Fratello called 3 or 4 timeouts. It was just like, you're on the other side of that. Had you seen basketball played that way? What do you remember from that?
I can actually, some of the best games I've ever been a part of with those Celtics games.
Yeah.
And we've had games where it's been so lopsided, and then next thing you know, it becomes a battle, because one team or the other picks up the pace, the defensive pressure, the offensive rotations as far as swinging the ball from side to side. And the Celtics is one of the best in history at
just click.
Yeah, just pushing the ball or swinging it from one side of the floor to the other, because they had so many shooters. And they had 3 really great inside players in Parrish, McHale, and Bird.
88 Game 6, you guys have a chance to win the game. You don't get the ball. Why don't you get the ball?
I'm still upset about that. But
Cliff Livingston. Was it Cliff Livingston or Antoine Carr?
It was
running lefty, off balance.
Right. It was designed for me to get the ball. It was designed for me to get the ball and just create something. Somehow the play got broken, and it ended up in Cliff Livingston's hands. I remember him taking off at the top of the key, and he goes to the basket, and he shoots a left-handing running.
I was happy as it was happening.
And I'm looking, I'm like, are you for real? I'm like, how did that happen? So I knew when we lost that game that it was going to be a war for Game 7. And I remember Bird making a prediction that Atlanta blew their opportunity, that he guaranteed to win. And I remember coming out of the locker room Game 7 right before we were on the court. I said, well, we're going to win this bleep game. If you ain't ready to go to war, if you ain't ready to fight, don't come out here.
Right.
Unfortunately, Bird was telling his teammates the same thing in the other locker room, and it came down to that great shootout.
Well, that turned out to be your most memorable game, though. I mean, I think that's probably the first one people mentioned.
I think so, because the circumstances, in the playoff,
Game
7, that team, whoever wins, goes to Eastern Conference Finals. And so it became a very important game in my career. And
also gets shown constantly. I'm sure you've stumbled across it on television.
Oh, yeah, all the time. You see it all the time. They constantly remind me of that, But you know what Bird said after?
Turn the channel.
Yeah, Bird said after that game.
Yeah.
As we walking off the court, he said, we both deserve to win this game. Unfortunately, one of us got to go home. He said, you're a hell of a player. And I remember that like it was yesterday.
Well, I was there. I'm in the tape. You can see me a couple times. I'm having a heart attack. One of the things I loved about that, there's a couple great things, just memories of it. One is that there's like a 3-minute stretch where you guys just traded hoops, and it just kind of escalated, and both of you were red hot. I don't know if I've been to another basketball game where 2 guys got red hot at the same time. You've been in games where they get hot.
Right.
That was different. Yeah. That was kind of like, I can't stop you, you can't stop me.
And the reason why it was different, and we didn't really look at it that way, and I'm sure Bird would tell you the same thing, it was about winning the game.
Right.
We were trying to do it was matching each other's will.
Yeah.
It wasn't really him competing against me or me against him.
Yeah.
It was about, what am I going to do next to keep us right in the thick of things so we can have a chance to win this game? We never thought about it that way. And we would say, look, we wanted to get to that Eastern Conference Finals. Whatever it took to get there, that's what we was going to do. And it came down to 2 guys matching each other's will.
And I remember Doc Rivers fouled out, and the Garden crowd gave him a standing ovation, which I'd never seen before. The game wasn't even over yet. It was just such a great game, and he was great. And it was like, hey, man, really good job.
Look, people talk about the shootout Bird and I had.
Yeah.
But they forget about the other guys who had a great game. McHale had 32 points that game. People don't talk about it. Randy Whitman had 28 that game. People don't. And you look at Kevin Willis and Doc Rivers. I think Doc Rivers had 17, 18 assists in that game. Kevin Willis had 16 rebounds.
It was kind of Doc Rivers' breakout game, right?
Yeah, But he had played well the whole series.
No, but I mean, that was like
but
when
that
you knew
game
he was
was
special.
kind of defining him because, man, he played one heck of a game in that series.
What did you think your best Hawks team was?
That team.
Yeah, 88?
That team, no question about it.
What was the best trash talk Bird ever said to you? By the way, it's a podcast. We can bleep stuff.
No, I mean,
if there's an F-bomb
I remember.
I know.
Bird said my first year, I'm excited. I'm playing against Larry Bird. I go shake his hand. He wouldn't shake my hand. Back then, guys just
you wouldn't shake your hand.
Wouldn't shake my hand. He would look at me and just nod, right? And I was like, well, maybe he's just getting into the game. And so the first time I'm guarding, he said, "You don't even belong in this league." He shoots a three. Wham! I said, okay. Next time he comes down, he said, "I don't know why they got you guarding me." He hits another three. Now I'm really mad now.
Right.
So I looked at Eddie Johnson. So you see me on the wing, pitch me the ball. And that's when you saw that play where he went up in the air to block my shot, and I had that dunk.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So after that, we both respected each other. We didn't talk much. We never really talked much trash to each other.
Who was tougher to stop at their apex? Bird during that mid-'80s stretch or Bernard King during that 2-year stretch?
I'm going to tell you something, and I've told many people, I told Bernard this, I've never feared anybody I've ever played against, no one. One guy made me nervous. That was Bernard King. And I remember when he went in the Hall of Fame this year, I said, that's something I always want to ask. I said, man, I never feared anybody. The only guy that made me nervous. And he said, well, Nick, I had to be that way. Like, he was laughing. I'm like, why? He said, because you made me nervous too.
Oh, that was nice to hear.
I'm like, oh, okay, well, let's finish with the ceremony here, But that was nice to hear.
I'm a giant Bernard King defender, so this is nice to hear.
He was a monster.
So what scared you about him? Just the inside-outside?
You couldn't guard him, period. I knew when I played against Bernard, he was going to get 40. Right. I knew it. So I said to myself, I can't, ain't no way I'm going to stop him. So we both going to get 40 and we just call it a wash, Right. So I didn't concern myself to really try. I tried to slow him down enough where you could help, but you couldn't stop him. If you didn't pick him up at half court, you couldn't stop him. It was too late. He's coming at you full speed, nothing you can do about it. It's only two guys that really in my career have scored more than 38, 39 points against me. Bird was the first, and, he's done that many times, and Bernard King is the other guy.
Who was the best guy you ever played with?
The best guy, I played with a lot of great guys. I mean, you got to put Doc Rivers at the top of that list, and Kevin Willis, Spud Webb.
Because
Randy Whitman was my best friend on that team, so he and I was very close, and so he's one of my best teammates. But Doc Rivers,
never, like nowadays, people would be like, Dominique Wilkins got to play with more other All-Stars. He's got to get to a big city. Back then, nobody thought that way.
I didn't want to play with another superstar.
Well, plus you were in Atlanta.
Because the thing is, the only way I could really measure my talent or my skill is I play against the best. I don't want to play with the best. And I guarantee Jordan has said the same thing. Magic, all of us, now, those guys happen to end up with great players. It wasn't by design. It just happened that way. But them guys wanted to beat the best players. Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, for years, the rivalry that they had, believe me, they didn't want to play with each other. They hated each other. But because that relationship was so intense from a competitive level, they ended up being best friends because they pushed each other to be the best they can be. And that's what the league was in those days.
I wrote about this in my book. A lot of people don't realize the fork in the road of your career, the 82 draft. You, James Worthy, Terry, you know where I'm going. You, James Worthy, and Terry Cummings are the top 3 picks in the draft in some order. You'd gone to Georgia. Terry Cummings went to DePaul. Worthy went to North Carolina. People thought Worthy was probably the number 1 pick. They weren't positive. The Lakers have the number 1 pick. Had they taken Dominique Wilkins, A, you're in Los Angeles, which I think you would have enjoyed. B, Magic Johnson's throwing you alley-oops for the next 12 years of your life.
Put it this way here. I've never got easier buckets in my life until I played with Magic Johnson. All you had to do is run with your hands up.
Right.
That's all you got to do.
So your career is totally different if that happens.
Well, you were only with the greatest point guard in the history of the game. And how can you not excel and be successful? How you not? I mean, with the way I played the game, would have made it easy, super easy for me. That'd be the easiest 30 or 40 points I ever would have gotten.
All right, well, first of all, think of how many unbelievable dunks we missed out on. You would have been the face of Showtime. You would have been in the finals every single year. Who can we who is it? Who can we get mad at? Jerry West? Like when Jerry West, do you get mad at him?
Actually, when I was coming out of Georgia, they said it was Jerry West. I love Jerry West. And he said, if you come out, you're going to be the number one pick. But I think what happened, Mitch Kupchak got hurt, so they had to pick a bigger forward. So I knew if I didn't go first, I would go third. So they went with Worthy, who's slightly taller, and it worked out for him. Worthy is a super player.
Turned out to be a great player.
He's a super player. I mean, if you really don't know about James Worthy and how he played the game, you really should go back and look at some film on James Worthy. He's a great player. So at that time, I knew if I didn't go first, I would go third to the Clippers. And
I thought that wasn't
not the
Utah.
Clippers, Utah. I'm sorry,
There was a Utah situation.
Terry Cummings went to the Clippers, but I knew I would be traded because I wasn't going to Utah because
you went to Utah.
Because what they said to me, they said, "Look, if you come to Utah, we want you to play power forward because Adrian Dantley is going to play small forward." I'm like, well, you might as well trade me today. I'm not playing power forward. I said, you see how big those guys are? I'm not playing power forward. I said, I'm 6'8" and 6'9", but those guys are 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", 6'11", 260, 270. I'm not playing against those guys. I'm a small forward. And so came down to, I forget who the other team was, but I know Atlanta was in the mix on the trade, and that was the best thing could ever happen.
So did you have your agent tell them you didn't want to go to Utah, or did you make it clear?
I didn't have to tell him. He knew I was going to Utah. But Atlanta kind of came up out of the blue. And so when they said a possibility I may be traded to Atlanta, man, I was doing dances in the street. I mean, by playing the University of Georgia, and now I have a chance to go to Atlanta with guys. Some guys I already knew, like Tree Rollins and Dan Roundfield. I already kind of knew those guys. So the thought of going to playing with them, man, I was happy as can be. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And that's the reason why I'm still there.
Right. Oh, that's true. You never left.
Never left.
I feel like you would have probably left Utah at some point after your
I probably
career.
would have.
You probably would have settled down there.
Atlanta's just a wonderful city. It's a wonderful organization. I have such a family relationship with that team and with, local and ownership out of D.C. So it's just a great atmosphere for me to be a part of.
Does it bother you that you didn't get to spend your whole career and retire with them?
That does disappoint you at times, but at the same time, they have the ability to still be a part of that organization. And my whole thing is to hope that, this is a very solid, good young group of guys who play very hard on our team, and just hopes and that the city really embrace that and really get behind these guys, because the product we put on the floor is a very solid and good product. So hopefully the community and the city will continue to support that.
You think I have a couple buddies who are Atlanta Hawks fans. They didn't like the Joe Johnson, Josh Smith teams. They were happy those teams got broken up. Did you think those guys got a fair rap?
Well, I think over time, sometimes you got to make change.
Yeah,
and I think when you can go as far as you can go, you got to explore opportunities, and I think we've did that. And Joe Johnson is a great player in his own right. Is still trying to find his way in Brooklyn because they've have some injuries, some problems. But Josh probably needed to get out of his hometown city, and go to another city where he didn't have so much distraction. And sometimes it works better.
It didn't work so far for Josh, though. What do you make?
That team's struggling a little bit.
What would be? I mean, he's one of the most polarizing players in the league, and I think there's a sense I'm like, all right, why are you shooting those threes? Why do you think you're a 22-foot jump shooter? Why do you seem so unhappy all the time?
Well,
I was always kind of a defender of his.
I think the thing with him, and I used to say to him all the time, the game, especially for a guy like yourself, is played from the inside out. I say a lot of times that three-point shot is fool's gold.
Yeah.
It looks good, but it's not the easiest shot as you think if you're not a specialist at that shot or a great jump shooter. So, but where you can make a big impact is inside. I used to tell them all the time. I say you have a mismatch problem, guys. You're quick off your feet. You're a lot smaller than a lot of power forwards, but you're strong and you got the athletic ability to wreak havoc around the basket.
Small forward.
So when he did that,
yeah,
man, he was very successful. He actually was a small forward playing power forward.
I actually think that's what he should be. And in Detroit, they have to play him at small forward because they're too big. But
well, I tell you, he is a power forward because that's what he's played his whole career. It's hard to make that change.
Plus, it keeps him closer to the rim.
Yeah, and it keeps him closer to the rim because he had power forward type of game. So you got to use that to your advantage.
Would you have wanted to play with him? Oh, you paused.
You know
I saw
what?
a pause.
You know what? I think we had a lot of leaders on our team.
Yeah.
And so we had no problem pulling a guy aside and say, look, this is what we want. This is the way we're going to play. If you can't play within this type of system, we're going to have problems.
Yeah.
So it was more leaders that really took I just want to say this, a more responsible role in helping young guys develop.
So you're saying for him, situation more than anything. You put him on a
because
veteran team with good people.
Absolutely, because Dan Roundfield did that for me.
Yeah.
And I remember one day in practice, I was kind of goofing off. This is probably, I think it's my first year. And he said, hey, rookie, this is my team. If you don't want to do it the way we want to do it, we can find somebody else to come out and play. You got Rudy Macklin sitting right over there. We can start him instead of you. He said, we don't play it like that. We are serious about the game. And I looked at him. I said, yes, sir, Mr. Roundfield. What I'm going to do, challenge him? He's 260 pounds. I'm not going to challenge him. So, but again, he was
a badass.
He was a bad. You
didn't want Dan Roundfield mad at you.
But you know what? Dan was a great teacher. Even though he was kind of rough and abrupt with you,
yeah,
he wanted you to do well because a year and a half later, he said, look, this is your team now. You the leader.
Right.
So he kind of passed the torch on to me. But he really took me on his wing early and taught me the ins and outs of the game. And he was that guy say, you know what, it's your time now. And he kind of passed the team on.
This is something Jalen and I always talk about people drafted by the wrong team, or people who go to a team, they're 20, they're 21, there's no veteran leader. I think you can kind of see it now with Kyrie Irving in Cleveland. You know, that's a young team. It's kind of a mess. They don't have those veteran guys there, and sometimes it can drift the wrong way.
Yeah, you can. And hopefully for them, that Luau Dang can bring a little bit more leadership, and I think he will.
Yeah.
I like Luau Dang. He plays the game the right way. He plays hard. He's long. He understands his role in the team. So I think once he get acclimated with that team, you're going to see a different Cleveland team because they bring in a little bit more veteran, but a very solid veteran who can play.
I'm not going to waste any time on this, but let's just agree that you got robbed in that dunk contest against MJ. We can move on, right?
Probably.
We don't have anything else to.
Yeah,
one of the all-time highway robberies of all time. When did you get over that? Like 10 years later?
You know what? To be honest with you, at the time it happened, a lot of people know who won, but at the same time, we didn't do it for us. We did it for the fans.
Right.
It wasn't about us.
But it mattered more about
But Michael and I are very close friends. We have a lot of respect for one another. And he said, hey, you probably won. You know it, I know it. But, hey, you in Chicago. What could I tell you?
He said that to you?
Yeah. But that's the relationship we had. It could have went, be honest, it could have went either way.
You won the contest.
Michael Jordan is a freakish dunker.
You won the contest.
But we both were.
No, you won.
But again, our competition against one another it was just unmatched. we enjoy competing.
Right. Does it bother you that the guys don't do it now?
Yes, it does.
Because you guys, that was worthwhile for you, right?
Yeah, because again, it's not about the individual.
Yeah.
It's about just giving the fan something for All-Star Weekend. The dunk contest was the signature event at All-Star Weekend.
Yeah.
That was everybody came to see the dunk contest.
Right.
And now you don't have any names in it. So it's hard to come out and support it. But, we want people to continue to support it, of course.
Right.
But you like to see some of the main guys in it.
Well, different era, too. Nowadays, you have these guys saying, no, it's bad for your brand if you lose.
Which is crap.
Right.
It's stupid, actually, because it's not about the end. I keep saying it over and over. It's not about the end. It's about giving the fans something. Hey, I've been in a dunk contest 5 times. I won 2. Well, I won 4, but I got credit for 2. But that's another story. but I enjoy doing it. I didn't care about winning or losing. Of course, we competed to win. But how does it mess with your brand? That blows my mind.
What do you remember from playing for the Celtics?
It was fun. True basketball fans.
We almost beat Orlando that year.
We had them.
Last year, the Garden. I was at all those games.
We had them.
Put a scare in them, Shaq and Penny.
Yes, we did. We actually, I thought we had them beat. I really did. But I think Chris Ford waited too late to really try to build the chemistry on our team. I think he was more into disciplining, guys than really thinking about winning. And
I was there for those games.
Hard coach to play for, man.
Listen,
hard to play for.
I had great seats for those games. I watched him. Brian Shaw, D. Brown, those guys, they just got fed up with him. He was
hard.
coaching from another era.
Oh man,
roll the ball out, let these guys go.
Yeah, man, it was a tough time, and I love Boston.
Yeah,
I lived there for 5 years. A lot of people don't know that.
We enjoyed having you.
I lived out in Dover, Mass, out in Wellesley.
Really?
Yeah, I loved it out there. I mean, it was a nice place, but was nothing going to keep me from Atlanta. I was eventually going back to Atlanta.
Yeah, let's talk about this. So, my friend Jalen Rose is not opposed to having a good time from time to time. He likes to champagne and campaign. He had some people who have shaped his things that his legacy, so to speak, going out in the town. He idolizes you on that front more than anybody in his life. This is an awkward conversation, but you're a legend, and I feel like this part of the Dominique legend has not really come out. You, by all accounts, were the most fun NBA. You're in Atlanta. Go out with Nick.
The thing is,
what is fun about you?
I'm tell you what, I did the same thing in Atlanta that Magic did in L.A. Is that when guys came to town, we made sure that they had a great time. I had a couple of nightclubs.
A great time, yeah.
Had a great time. Make sure they were good
Wear
and
them
tired.
out for the game.
That's right. We wore them out for the game. So I used to send a guy like Dwayne Ferrell. I said, look, you go in there, tenderize them and toughen them up a little bit. Because he was going to beat you to death. I said, once you tenderize them, I go and finish them off. So it was all a plan. It was
tenderizing. I like this.
It was a method to our madness.
So, we worked with Magic last year. Magic has, he's very proud of his reputation as being one of the most fun guys from that era, and people coming in and going out and partying and all that stuff. And Jalen was always like, Dominique was like the Magic of that era, but didn't get the publicity for it. Did everything stealth.
Well, L.A., you on stage here.
Yeah.
And so you had
sounds
every
like you were
outlet.
better off in Atlanta.
No, I wouldn't say that, but we enjoyed ourselves. And again, Atlanta was a very fun town to live in. And I tell you what, that city, I wouldn't live anywhere else. I love Atlanta. We talked about the Boston. As much as I hated Boston as a team because to play against them, when we played against them, I love the city as far as living there, but Boston, we all hated each other. That's just the way it was. But living in Atlanta for me it was heaven. I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, but Atlanta is my home.
All right, so it's let's say 1984. No, let's say you're in the league. How many people who lived with you your first year?
I don't have anybody other than my brother.
Your brother, that's it.
I didn't believe in all. I like my privacy.
You didn't have an entourage or anything?
No. I never traveled with bodyguards and posses and whatever you want to they call it these days. Never did any of this.
What kind of house did you have in your prime?
I live in a 1-bedroom.
Nothing major?
I'm just kidding, man. I'm just kidding.
Big mansion?
Actually, I had nice things. I had the big house, and but one thing I enjoyed myself, but I was a very private guy. I didn't like a lot of people around me at home. I really didn't, other than family. I love my family. I was very close with my family. I am very close with my family. Those are the people I had around. I didn't have a whole lot of people around me.
I still don't. We're still not getting to the point why you're Jalen's all-time idol. I still don't. I don't have enough information.
I can't tell you everything.
I don't have enough information. You're like the guy.
You know what?
But this isn't part of your legacy. I feel like it should be.
I'm going to tell you what it is. When they were part of that Michigan team, I was one of the few guys who actually supported them, say, you know what, this team is the best team in college basketball. And I think it started from that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because in college, what year was that? The 82 tournament?
Yes.
What'd you make, Final Four?
Yeah, the Final Four. It was that.
And you got to like that was one of the most fun college teams.
That was one of the most fun college teams I've ever seen. And you look at Jalen Rose, Chris Webber, and Juwan Howard, guys that I kind of went public and said, hey, this is the best team in college basketball. And I think that relationship between the three of us, actually the four of us, built from that. And so when they came to Atlanta, I made sure those guys were taken care of, and so they were good and tired when we played the game the next day.
What'd you call it? Tenderize them?
Tenderize them. We had to tenderize them.
Tenderize playing with Dominique Wilkins. Wait, did you have like a favorite club, or was it a variety of clubs?
I had a club downtown called Dominique's Downtown.
Oh, it was named after you. This story's getting really interesting.
Yeah. It was
so
a nice
Dominique's
place.
Downtown.
I had live entertainment. I've had
live entertainment.
I've had Prince come to my club. I've
Prince.
Had Keith. I have a lot of entertainers that performed at my club. It was a very nice club. You had to wear suit and tie. You couldn't even come to my club if you didn't have suit and tie. It was a prestigious place.
So let's say I'm on like the 1988, Kings, and I'm like, oh, Atlanta's on the schedule. I'm going to hang out at Dominique's downtown. Was that what people were thinking?
Oh, yeah. No question.
So this was good for you.
Yeah, it was good
no
for
wonder
me.
You had a good home record.
Hey, I tell you, it was by design.
Right.
And it worked.
When did you get married? Did you get married?
Yes, I did.
What year was that?
I got remarried.
You got remarried?
I got remarried 2 years ago.
When was the first marriage?
That was probably about 5-6 wives ago. I'm thinking. No, I'm just joking, man. I'm just kidding. I was married for 13 years to my first wife. Had 2 lovely twin girls.
Any celebrity girlfriends?
No,
at any point?
No. Well,
because you're stealth.
Yeah, well, yeah,
you
maybe.
Were stealth.
Yeah, you know what? There's a few.
A few.
Won't say their names right now. That was when I was a young man, but we all was young once.
All right, so I know Jalen's favorite cities to go, to have fun, play basketball, do the whole thing. Atlanta was in the mix. That was his part of his Mount Rushmore. I think Houston is in there. Los Angeles.
Well, you talk about all the major cities. You talk of Chicago, New York at that time was a hot city, one of the hottest cities in the country. Like I said, L.A. was always great. You always loved coming play here. It was a fun place to play. Chicago was a fun place to play. Would you hang with
Magic when you came here?
Magic and I was very close friends. Very close friends. And, after games or even mainly in the summer, all of us spent a lot of time in L.A. with Magic. And all of us would train, play together. And when I say train, we would come and play basketball. That's all we did. We played, and that's how we got better. We all had a personal relationship, but once we got on the floor, it's like we didn't know each other.
Right.
It was a battle. It was a war.
Where'd you go to high school?
I went to high school in North Carolina, a little small town called Little Washington.
So like Magic and Jalen, they're Michigan. They when they're arguing about what state produced the best players, they say Michigan. So somebody else will say, oh, no, New York City had the best. So what state claims you?
You look in the state of North Carolina and see the great players that came out of the state of North Carolina. It's a lot of them.
So you're North Carolina.
Yes.
They claim
North Carolina. Oh, yeah, no question.
So you got Jordan. Who else?
You got Worthy.
David Thompson.
It's a lot of guys. Charlie Scott. It's a lot of guys.
That was my dude, Charlie Scott.
That's a lot of guys.
That was my first favorite Celtic.
You look at Vince Carter, Stackhouse. We got a lot of guys come out of there.
Why so many entertaining players, you think?
Because we entertainers, baby. That's what we do in
North Carolina. What was it about Carolina?
A lot of country boys.
Why so many above the rim dudes?
There's a lot of country boys, a lot of athleticism. A lot of them guys worked on farms and all that stuff. So they're country strong guys.
Well, I wrote my book about David Thompson. He learned to play on a clay dirt basketball court, and I thought maybe that was one of the reasons he could jump so high because being on that clay dirt.
I signed a letter of intent with North Carolina State because of David Thompson. And I think the reason why I didn't go is because they was comparing me to be the next David Thompson. And I think at that time as a high school player, I didn't want all that attention. So at the last minute, I decided to go to Georgia. But David Thompson was the reason why I signed a letter of intent. Greatest forwards ever.
LeBron versus Bird. I mean, are you ready to have that conversation yet?
Conversation, I think it's an unfair conversation because you're talking different eras.
Yeah.
You're talking guys who haven't finished his career. Look, make no mistake, LeBron
he's in the mix.
He's one of the greatest players, no question about it. That era, late 70s, 80s, it's unbelievable. The talent. You're talking every night just at the small forward position. You had no nights off.
Right.
All those guys played the game from the ends. All of them were great post-up players, great off the dribble, jump shooters. It's too many guys. So you had no nights off. And that era was unbelievable. It's hard to put in words how great that era was.
What about watching Durant right now? I mean, nobody in your era was like Durant. That was like the 6'11" guy who with the 28-foot range who could score inside out. That person didn't exist in the 80s. I feel like he might be an alien.
He's a guy who's 6'10", 6'11", who can handle the ball and have unbelievable shooting ability. We had a lot of great athletes like that. Maybe not at the small forward at that size, but again, it's hard to really put in words how great those small forwards was back in the 80s. You look at guys like Larry Nance, who's 6'11", small forward.
Right.
Thurl Bailey, 6'11", small forward. We had a lot of big forwards. I mean, I was and I'm 6'8.5", 6'9". I was one of the small forwards. I mean, they were big in those days.
As part of your job for VP, it sounds like you got to tenderize guys like Durant and LeBron when they come to town.
Well, you know, I passed those days.
You're never past those days.
I passed that torch on to the younger guys.
Come on.
But just to leave with this, with those two guys, along with you can put Carmelo in that mix too.
Yeah.
I mean, they're some of the greatest small forwards to play. I mean, like you said, Durant is a freak of nature. Yeah. He is. And LeBron's a freak of nature. And guys that play the game on a different level.
All right. We have to roll. I could have kept going for a while, but you have to leave. You're a busy man.
Well, pleasure, man.
Dominique Wilkins, that was fun. It was nice to finally meet you.
Pleasure.
Thanks for everything. All right.
Pleasure.
Target to sign off. Whoa.
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at PodCenter at ESPNRadio.com.
Peace out.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.